Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we'll be discussing our Game Week 7 team selection. We'll see how we got on in Game Week 6 and maybe some of my transfer plans going forward. If you do like the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. So in front of you I have our Game Week 6 score. I won't spend too long on this, and if you've already seen this you can skip on to the next part, which is our team selection. But Game Week 6 on wildcard was a bit of a disaster in a sense where we only got 47 points. I still really like the structure that we chose for wildcard 6. It just didn't end up working out for us. We had a few returns in Semenyo and Buemo, Rogers, Solanke and Kai Havertz, but no big holes like other teams I'm seeing on the Twitter space. For example, the likes of a Palmer or a Salah, who a lot of people captained. When I look at my team in general, I don't regret wildcarding in 6. Looking back, I had a few injuries with the likes of João Pedro, Son Heung-min and Diogo Jota potentially being a doubt as well. So I don't think it was the worst decision in the world. Of course, in hindsight, it's easy to say. But 47 points brought us to around 3 million in the world. We move on. There's one thing I wanted to kind of speak about or touch upon before we moved on from this section, and that is the Elite 1000. So this is a graphic from Lucas on Twitter, or FPL or F Analytic on Twitter, and it basically shows 1,000 of the best managers in the world, or over the last few years 1,000 of the best managers, and it kind of just shows where in this point of time we are compared to other seasons. Right now we, or the Elite 1000, not we, are 2.8 million in the world as a median rank, which is a poor representation of considering when you compare to previous seasons. So 2021-22 they were nearly 200,000 in the world at this point. 22-23 there are 550,000, and 23-24 1.4 million. And when I look at this graph, also it's good to note their final rank is on the right, so they consistently finish within 30 and 75,000, which is amazing when you look at it that way. And they are elite managers for a good reason. Basically what this tells me is that, you shouldn't be worried about your rank at this part of the season. We're not the only ones. I know a lot of people, especially content creators, are getting a bit of flack for doing quite poorly, including myself. But a lot of people are not doing great, and that includes some of the best managers that we've had in FPL history. So don't worry about your rank just yet. I'm sure it will level out as we go out through the season. I'm quite hopeful. I know I'm 3 millionth in the world, but still plenty of time to come. So that is our Game Week 6 kind of little roundup, and let's get on to our Game Week 7 team selection. So like I said, I wildcarded in Game Week 6. We currently have 3 free transfers and 1.3 million in the bank. Definitely a good position to be in just after the wildcard, and I really like my team for this week. On goal, we've gone with Ederson, 3 at the back with Trent, Saliba and Lewis. I suppose we'll start with the double city up, or the double city boys, the double city up. Ederson versus Fulham and Lewis versus Fulham as well. Ederson giving away a penalty last week and got a yellow card. Of course it didn't work out, but it actually wasn't too bad in the end after Arsenal conceded 2 goals. But I suppose what could it have been against Newcastle. But I'm quite hopeful with City going in against Fulham. I think they're going to try kill him, to be honest. 2 draws in a row now for City. League champions 4 years in a row. I can imagine that they will try do everything in their power to try keep a clean sheet this week. A clean sheet midweek with a 4-0 win in Champions League. Of course, Phil Foden with a goal, and also that robot up top scored. Lewis with some very good XGI. I'm fairly sure it's at least 1.6. So I think the only issue I would have with starting Lewis this week is if we get no information just before the deadline, and I could potentially be inclined to play Mikalenko instead versus Newcastle, which wouldn't be ideal, but I think again the opportunity of Lewis having such good high upside is a big incentive for me. Of course, on the bench we have Ward, Dibbling, Mikalenko and Greaves. Nothing really standing out other than the fact that Dibbling got 70 minutes playing number 9 for Southampton on Monday night. Our 2 at the back, or 2 other defenders at the back, Saliba versus Southampton at home. Of course, Arsenal the most likely to pick up a clean sheet this week when we talk about bookies odds. And I think this is probably going to be Arsenal's most comfortable fixture of the year. Southampton at home, who've looked, I would say, arguably the worst team in the league. So as a single, I don't even know if I want a clean sheet, to be honest, because I know so many people are doubled up. But as a Saliba owner, maybe we can catch some variance and come up with an attack and return. Trent Alexander-Arnold versus Crystal Palace away. Liverpool, of course, had the easiest fixture run at the start of the season. Now the fixture is going to start looking a bit more difficult. Crystal Palace, who are in the bottom three in the league, which have started the season very, very poorly. So it's going to be a tough game for Liverpool at Selhurst Park. But as a Trent owner, you're always hopeful, of course, as for some attack and returns. A mistake from Konate last week versus Wolves, which cost Liverpool their clean sheet. Even Arne Slot came out and said that Konate was kind of messing around. But let's see what happens in this Liverpool game. Trent as an asset looking forward. I know a lot of people are getting rid of him on wildcard, but I think going forward he is still quite solid. That is the defence. Let's take a look at our midfield. So we've got a midfield 4 of Saka, Rodgers, Semenyo and Mbeumo. 4 arguably really, really good fixtures. Saka, of course, being the standout for me with Southampton at home, and potentially even a captaincy option, which we'll get into. Morgan Rodgers versus United, who Ten Hag's job is in jeopardy, so I can imagine it will actually be a bit closer than we expect it to be. Villa with a massive win midweek, so maybe their players will have a bit of tired legs, I want to say. But of course, United also play today, so let's see what happens in that game. Semenyo with Leicester away, of course getting a return last week. This is probably Semenyo's last week in my team before he goes on to play Arsenal in game week 8. I'm happy to hold on to Semenyo this week, and he looks absolutely electric. Of course, he was very close to getting an assist as well, so it could have been a big haul, but happy with the goal. And Mbeumo with Wolves at home, which is a very, very good fixture. Again, I do think that the likes of Wissa missing out in this Brentford team is affecting Mbeumo in terms of attack and returns. Brentford looking quite poor in terms of XG created, I would like to say. So, of course, Mbeumo is a solid option at that price point, though, on penalties and some free kicks. So, let's see if Brentford can score in the first minute of the game again. Let's talk about captaincy a small bit. I want to speak about my 2 favourite captains this week for me, which is Bukayo Saka, of course, and Erling Haaland. These are for my own team now, so if you have the likes of a Mo Salah, I've not yet considered them as an option. But yeah, 38 points compared to Haaland, 65 so far. 1 goal for Saka, 10 for Haaland, 5 assists for Saka, 0 for Haaland, and some decent numbers for both of them. What I will say is, for me, I feel like my captaincy option is fairly easy. Is most likely going to be Erling Haaland. I want to say it's 90%, but I don't mind Saka as an option at all. We quite often speak about the consistency of Bukayo Saka, but I do think he does have some explosive attributes in him. He took 8 shots last week and accumulated quite a lot of XGI, so I do think Saka is not a bad option in a fixture like Southampton. A small bit what takes me away from putting the armband on him is probably the fact that Southampton, like I said, is probably one of the easier games of the season, so I wouldn't be surprised with an early sub, especially with the midweek fixture we just saw. So, again, I probably see Saka's minutes being between 75 and 80. Again, if you think differently, then by all means put the armband on him. And I know last week he did play a lot of minutes versus Leicester, but that game was very, very close till the end, so it makes sense on why he was subbed so late. Of course, on Erling Haaland's end, another goal in the Champions League, and it doesn't put me off what happened last week versus Newcastle away. It was never an ideal fixture to captain the likes of a Haaland at St James's Park, but I do think it wasn't the worst decision in the world. And after that, 10 goals in 5 games, you can't blame me really. So let's see in the second week of owning Erling Haaland if he can come up with a return. So yeah, that's my captaincy section. I do think it will be Haaland. Let's get back to the team. So getting back to the team, Solanke, Haaland and Havertz up top, like I said, with Haaland being the captain. I think Solanke has a good opportunity to do very, very well this week against Brighton away. And of course, Fulham at home, I think, is an excellent fixture. City, with Foden being potentially back in the side, let's see what happens. I do think Foden is likely to start this game with him getting more minutes midweek, and I would love him as a differential, but I just don't think I can quite squeeze him in yet with the free transfers I have. I could alternatively bring Trent down and bring Semenyo up to a Foden, but I don't think that's quite worth it this week. I'd rather play those two. And of course I have the triple City assets already, so it would require me to get rid of Lewis at some point. Of course, Kai Havertz versus Southampton at home. He accumulated over a 2xG last week versus Leicester, and another amazing option going into this game week. I think the decision was right to end up with the double Arsenal attack. Now, of course, they have Southampton, and next week they have Bournemouth. But then from then on, the fixtures do get a bit rougher on a defensive point of view. But I'm sure after you get past maybe game week 10 or 11, that's when we'll be I'll consider getting double Arsenal defence once again. So Saka and Havertz versus this Southampton team at home, I do think we could see a big haul, and I don't think there is a ceiling for this fixture. In terms of getting into a bit more depth in the Brighton versus Spurs game, I know Hartzler played quite a high line last week in a 4-2 loss versus Chelsea, but I can't imagine he's going to set up the same way against Spurs. I know Van Heck is also out injured, which is a massive blow for Brighton. So let's hope Solanke can pick up some key areas. In terms of Young-Min Son and whether or not he's fit enough, we've not yet got an update, but I do know he did not travel with the team in Europe. And I also know that Solanke is potentially going to be on the bench today. I know. I'm going to assume Solanke is going to be on the bench today for Spurs. We do play in the Europa League, so let's see what happens with that. I'd be very surprised if he does get that start, but again, don't hold me to him being on the bench. So I really do like my team this week. I know I keep saying it, but some very good, decent home fixtures for some of the big boys of the likes of the triple City and triple Arsenal, and then some big boy assets in the likes of a Trent and Solanke with a decent fixture, and also favourable fixtures for the cheaper assets in Semenyo and Mbeumo. So that is the team. Let me know what you think of my team in the comments. If you have any questions about your own team, be sure to fire some in the comment section below. I'll get back to absolutely every single one of them. Best of luck this game week, and I'll of course be doing a deadline stream tomorrow, Saturday. I want to say an hour and a half before the deadline, so be sure to join me. So that's the end of this video, and I will see you in the next.